Hello, everybody. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. It is your goth country girl in training, the lady who always has champagne handy, and of course, your favorite dipple top mess here. Alrighty, so we are going to be discussing Girls Weekend by CM Nacosta. So, most of you know my book journey with these kind of monster lovers books and monster bait books. Out as a joke. Shout out to Veronica for recommending this book to me. My very first monster bait book. I instantly became a fan of these. And if Creek was real, I would gladly move to it with no money and Joe job and hopefully find some kind of luck in the big dick kind of energies around in public or that are way filthier in private. And I loved Milking Farm. Now I am, putting it politely, in the world of monster smut. By the way, do not let the covers deceive you. Veronica, the hot mess bestie, was like, the covers look like teen books. And I was like, oh no, ma'am. I can guarantee that these are the opposite of teen books. And what better way to start off this thirsty autumn thought fall than to read about three elves who are work friends and for the most part are unapologetically looking to get laid at a nudist resort. I'm just saying it does not get any better than that. Oh, wait. Yeah, let's get into it. Spoilers and sexual content of all sorts ahead. Note to self, I will be discussing Girls' Weekend and parties in one video, but separately. So the first half will solely be focused on Girls' Weekend, and then the other half will be focused on parties. Honestly, I just started reading the series after The Ritual, and it was exactly the palate cleanser that I needed. No hormonal bullshit, no super angsty MMC or toxic FMC, just flowers, love, and sex in all shapes and sizes. No, like literally, orchidic werewolves, orgies with goblins, and heads everywhere. But, anyways, basically, the summary for Girls' Weekend Book One goes like this. When L'Oreal meets a syrupy voiced gentleman who seems interested in more than just a weekend fling, she finds sticking to plan is easier said than done. From a public bathhouse to a back alley pub, the trip has unintended consequences of the lives of three work friends and the orcs they meet. Let's start with our three hot messes. There's Riz, Silva, and L'Oreal. I will admit that I appreciate being out of college and independent women just trying to make it on their own and find that real adulthood balance. I could go on and on about it, but the fact that they are each so different. Yes, they are from the same species, but they also have their own personalities and risk taking moments. Prime example number one, Riz, the obvious party girl. If you're anything like an experienced partier like moi, then there are a few telltale signs of the wild one in the group. In this case, she is the hot tall elf, and she is anything but quiet about her personal endeavors and bucket list. However, like most things, I think in this book she got the least amount of smut, and I personally think it only added to her personality because, as anyone familiar with the modern dating scene, it is number one, not easy. Two, swiping gets boring. Three, sometimes you absolutely do not want any of the sorts of strings attached things. Four, we all have a sexual bucket list, so there is no shaming on this channel whatsoever. Example number one. Quote, we are going to shock it up today to being a learning experience. Riz called out. We've got to be other sightseers and or else we need to get these guys on their own somewhere. Otherwise we're never getting late. End quote. AKA all species of women are unapologetically horny for some good lay, and apparently it's a freaking competition. I don't know about you all, but the only thing I know about the nudist resort is one, that episode of Golden Girls where it's Valentine's Day and they thought they were just going to the resort in the mountains for a good time. And two, apparently Sacramento has a secret resort similar, but don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. But I found it so endearing because, of course, the one whose bright idea it was to go to this resort would be the one who had the most okay sex of them all. I enjoyed her spunk and adventurous personality. I'm pretty sure she is a fire sign. I also feel like she is someone who is quite the opposite of someone who wants something conventional. I think this started from her lack of wanting to fit in elvish, in the elvish community. Quote, she realized after attending a welcome event at the Elvish Social Club that she no longer had the desire to twist herself into something she wasn't. The town community center offered a full slate of classes and clubs. She joined the multi species gym and had no regrets. Like love is totally something that she is up for. But I kind of enjoyed the fact that usually the loud one is not the most vanilla. And before I read parties, I was low key curious on what kind of partner she would snag because she's wild and carefree. And I'm looking forward to talking more about her in the second book. It's always the quiet ones. Prime example number two, Silva. I'm not going to lie. I thought she was going to be the most prudish one of them all, but of course, she ended up with a very hot bartender. I mean, I can't blame her. Also, I admit she had some very, very hot scenes. I mean, I enjoy a good threesome moment, and I feel like sometimes girl on girl scenes can be very forced. Sometimes you all know which ones I'm talking about. I kind of like this thing kind of line. What between are they not a real thing? Because Tate sure as hell has a representation and a prowess that makes Shauna the female or kind of step back and also lets Silva be unapproachable and Tate's own bar. I personally enjoy the mysteriousness of Tate and the oppositeness of Silva because I think most women readers can relate to her in the sense of expectations, whether it be from society or family members of when are you getting married or you should see the son of my friend or here's my son's phone number but trying to low-key play it off. It is a nice nickname, Silva of the daytime, who often tries to blend into these expectations and rules that elfish society and family imposes. Quote, she hadn't resisted when he'd kissed her, pushing away the Silva she was, Silva of the daylight hours, chronically preoccupied with perfection, worried about what her grandmother might say and think, worried about finding a good job, worried about having friends and finding a boyfriend who is husband material. End quote. This is versus, quote, Silva of the nighttime, quote, who I dare say is way more fun than the workaholic living on the family dime. Can we talk about it? I personally enjoyed reading the scene with Alshana and Silva being the pillow princess. I admired it from afar, said Tate. And also, Silva, you by Curious Butterfly, I see you. I see you. I think that they are the couple I ship because they both seem to naturally balance each other out. He treats her so gently and so naughty and marks territory on her. Come on, guys. And he knows her culture and is part Fae. Yeah, come on. I need them to be a thing. One of their first encounters was the back room being intimate and hot. Obviously, you would see it was like, quote, little dove. Right now, the orcish parts of me wants to see if those beautiful lips of yours wrapped around my while the Fae in me wants to keep you on your knees until I'm through with you, but the elvish part is too much of a gentleman to ever say such crass things to a lass as lovely as yourself. End quote. Did I mention he was Irish? She didn't even have his phone number at first, and then there was all this tension building and things that would never really normally never happen if it was just a quick go fuck buddy system. I didn't like the way that things ended off between them at first because we were rooting for them to get laid. Obviously, we're here today. But I was beyond happy when she decided to track down his bistro's number because I was not about to have it end like that. Obviously, like a good hot mess reader, I had parties booked two on hand, but I can't imagine having to wait another year for that. But the fact that Tate recognizes her silence and says, quote, is that you, Dove? Quote, my heart. It was beating faster than my vibrator, let me tell you. Last but not least, because I sure as hell have a lot to say about this one in particular, she has no labels because she is the one I always wanted, and I need more unapologetic, sexual, curvaceous FMCs with anxiety and trauma who's an adult and stepping away into her own. I damn near almost cried when I read L'Oreal because I was so fucking relieved to see her. I cannot explain how much I related to L'Oreal because, yes, I am the curvy one in my family. And I also have seen how women who are more curvy are treated. And I don't want to pass that on to future generations if I so choose or my own, especially in a Mexican American household. Sometimes it could feel we are not good enough for our family when they comment all this shit about our bodies, that we are not good enough, that we do not eat, or God forbid, they make us super healthy shit. We get shit for that too. And American society and standards, just fuck that. That's a whole different beast that I'm frankly am tired and sick of. Anyways, good to see that Elvish society are basically really prim versions of the Elite Rebelde. If you know, you know. But if you know, then you also know the 2004 version is the supreme. But Luriel is a huge romantic at heart. Quote, his voice was like a sweet syrup, thick and dark and slow moving, and Luriel couldn't explain the trance it seemed to put her in, why it relaxed her at the same time it quicked her breath. End quote. Can we talk about the hot orc we saw at the beginning who was obviously attracted to her and he asked for her consent all the way down to their first encounters? Ladies, know your worth. Sometimes he really is interested. The chemistry between him. You know, I have a soft spot for a man with a nice southern drawl. The fact that they met each other at a nudist resort, but at the same time only started talking to each other at a hot tub. All throughout this book, I would have been L'Oreal because if I had someone who is unbelievably hot, like my boyfriend starts smooth talking me and start loving up on me, I would have been like, okay, I see. This is only casual. This is only casual, just like, her, like how she was. The fact that she also had her own anxiety surrounding herself and how she looks, I think everybody, but most especially non conventional and curvier women, have that pressure that leads to that unwelcome anxiety with herself. But I just wanted to say she's beautiful, and this whole book just proved that, hey, to put it bluntly, big girls can get them too. I remember this from an Instagram page I follow called Fat Girls in Fiction, or sorry, Fat Girls Belong in Fiction. I want to add to that and say that fat women of color also belong in fiction. Because we all know the Lily Blooms, the book talks, the skinny, twisted women are solely based on a figure that society accepts. And it's too narrow. Too narrow. Back to Lyria. Yes, I want more of her and the kind of attention that hot, handsome male characters can have her too. The fact that he was like, you should have woken me up after they finally did it. I was so sad. Then this proves why communication is important because they were both feeling something so much more for each other. But due to L'Oreal assuming, because, we are still in a nudist resort, she assumes that he'll forget about her, and I'm so glad we're able to see this happy ending along with many of their hot scenes together there in this book. But one of my favorite foreshadows, dare I say, about the relationship, he states at the end after her long and honest rant, going from high waisted and big girl panties. And for a second, she was scared that, she had scared him off, but instead he's like, quote, I have a lot of kinks, Bluebell, which you'll get to discover. But rest assured that big panties on beautiful girls with freckles and thick asses is the top of my list. I'm just horny thinking about it. End quote. I could not help but smile. I love my dog romances, I do, but there's nothing wrong with a good sweetness of a romance, especially where real characters that can be relatable are involved. All right. If you're still here, thank you for listening so much. Um, Let me know down in the comments below if there are any standalone smutty recommendations that have curvy women who are stars of the show. That being said, I will be getting into Parties Book 2. If you haven't read that, I definitely recommend reading it. Otherwise, we are going to get into spoilers and smutty talk ahead for this one as well. Parties, I will admit, was just as good as Girls Weekend. Also, by the way, I did not expect that Girls Weekend was going to end up on such a cliffhanger. Like that phone call with Tate and L'Oreal in the end, and Riz. Oh, Riz, I just wanted to get a good lay with multiple orgasms, and Parties did not disappoint. One of my favorite director's notes of Parties was at the beginning by CM Nacosta, where it states all the triggers and then it states, quote, just a stupid amount of angst from these idiots. No plot, just horny vibes has been my mantra in this book, end quote. I loved this warning and I just wish the book The Ritual had it because God, that book was literally angst, smut, and a soap opera plot. Just saying. Just saying. I know I'm mentioning, but it was fresh. I enjoyed the plot of Parties because honestly, it was simple and easy to understand. Here are three grown ass women who are managing the career and their family lives. L'Oreal and Silva, especially, they literally have elvish standards of society with marriage, wife, dom, and horrible pressure on women bullshit. But one of my favorite quotes is when Silva and Tate were having a date night and they were watching a horror movie then. End quote. She disliked horror normally. Humans were bad enough on their own, and the thought of undead humans terrorizing a town of helpless goblins sounded positively ghastly. End quote. Let me tell you, I was happy to know that there are shitty human men in this universe too. Other than fictional and genuinely monster and human ones, I'm semi open to a conversation about that because honestly, it is such a fascinating thing to talk about. I will probably talk now because it's been a quick minute since I've discussed setting. I have not done the milking farm book yet. It is something that I am going to do. And it is a video that I am collaborating with someone else on just because he has read the milking farm book as well. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now on it, but it is a book that we do read together. We did read together, and I know me and him have any thoughts on that. So I will be getting to that milking farm book. But for now, let me just discuss Cambric Creek. Cambric Creek is basically a monster town with a lot of interspecies around, and I don't remember the name of every town. I do remember the Plundering Pixie, big fan, the resort town where I met our main men be at, and the city where there's actual human men. And I want to say it's not as homey as Cambric Creek. Think Davis, California compared to Sacramento, California. Or honestly, if you out of Cali or SoCal, shout out and think of a nice town and then the city. But anyway, city girls are the only thing I'll be in the city for, if even that. I'm retired. You know, what could I say? All I know is that's where my favorite Minotaur also lives, aka the cameo appearance of Rorik, L'Oreal's neighbor, and it is something I honestly schooled at, like clearly. Also, go you, L'Oreal, for having your own house still. Bet it's especially cheaper than California, but I was overall fascinated by how different each place Nacosta took us to because it kind of established how each character is and how really intermixed Cambric Creek is. Cambric Creek also has another cameo from another couple who was a huge spider. No, I don't know the official name of it. I'm sorry. And his human partner. And I know it was one of the orc boys who was just as shocked about seeing this in real life. So the resort town was established as a place for orcs and a place for horny tourists, but not really a place that a lot of people stay in, minus the orcs themselves or business people that thrive off the tourist season like Tate and the like. City, if you read this, please remind me the name piece. I cannot find it down in the comments below when I posted it. Is the only place so far in this series that human men make an appearance, and of course, it's at a bar. Plus, this is also where Tate has his party to go on with Silva, and the main reason I recognize this place is because this is also the place that Silva runs in with her ex, and like a good man, Tate beats the shit out of her ex. Yeah, quick moment. Can we just talk about the fascinating fact that more human women are in Cambric Creek over any men? I don't think I have heard or seen human men that much in this universe, and I can't say I blame him, but it is quite interesting because there's definitely a lot of diversity, and low key, I would try to move there for the quote unquote, science. I also have a really soft spot for smaller and more hometowny feels. I live in the mountains, so that tells you how much I prefer like smaller or like more natural places. But feel free to let me know if you would also reside in Cabot Creek or one of the surrounding towns. Before I start in on the couples, what did you think of the trio's friendship? Like Riz, Silva, and L'Oreal's friendship? I kind of wanted more Girl Squad moments, like call me a 2000s girl, but I wanted to get more scenes with just the three of them, like, oh, I don't know, a shopping scene or a scene where all of them were just at dinner, kind of talking shit and love about their situationships or relationships. I will admit, I have enjoyed how much Silva has come out into her own because we have readers have always known her to be hiding her real tendencies because there's Silva of the daytime and then Silva of the night, But I'm glad to have seen that shift with her seeing more and respecting more of what L'Oreal had to go through, breaking off negative family members and risks. I feel like she has more wisdom that she lets, us know from hot mess to hot mess. And I maybe wanted more honest insight from her and to her other two friends. An example, Riz could have provided advice on confidence and owning her shit. Silva could have added how to be the proper lady, and L'Oreal and standing up for herself. They could have added those bits, for like as advice to one another. But alas, I would have wanted that conversation to happen naturally and more moments that represented beautiful, healthy female friendships. But hey, at the same time, nothing emphasizes that more than having girls' weekend at a nudist resort, although they were all really into their own pursuits, so I can't blame them. But hopefully they bond more in the third book. Let's start with Riz. Honestly, all I could say about her is that she's giving me top energy, fully in control, and so in her relationship with Ainsley. I was surprised about, but also not at the same time. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he make a quick appearance in Girls with Weekend? Wasn't he the one who had the Shakespeare quip back and forth when she was jogging in the morning in the downtown resort part? Riz is still kind of the wild one, and let me explain why. Ainsley kind of threw about her escapades into the resort, and just love their chemistry together. And I will always have a soft spot for chemistry and things, feeling being felt off the page. From the get go, Ainsley was like, I kind of have this cute nickname for you. And she was like, what was that? It's Nanaya. Sorry if I'm saying this wrong. And Nanaya, the goddess of sexuality, pleasure, and war. Admirable, right? And Ainsley's like, I'm your devotee. And quote, what's your cost of entry, Nanaya? Yes, yes, and yes. But Riz also doesn't want the pressures of marriage or relationships. This girl is just trying to get laid and have fun with it. And I respect that fact. Relationships can be very beautiful things, but so is singlehood and owning your femininity and sexuality on your own. The fact that her and Ainsley went to an orgy party, I'm glad I'm I was glad to know I'm not the only one who'd be intimidated. Not that I could ever be found by those. Mm-mm. Anyways, but the couple that was hosting were giving such egg vibes. Like, come on, Miss Wifey couldn't be a little bit more subtle. And don't get me started on her werewolf husband. Like, come on, you both are too much. Like, I get it. Miss Riz and Mr. Ainsley are so fucking fine, but calm down. There's an art to subtlety and flirtation. I don't always know it because it's a freaking hard yellow brick road to find, but you get the gist. Their dynamic is one of the more honest types because they are friends first. For most of you here, you know that I enjoy romantic stories that start with friendships. And that is why I'll always appreciate the trope of childhood friends to lovers. But not just that, they're stepping away from traditional views that most people want, which is monogamy. I'm glad they decided to take a risk and be open about their sexual lives. Well, oh, we're definitely a couple. If you tell me we're not, it's going to break my heart. Tate will call to yell at you, and then he'll be very smug and superior, and I honestly cannot deal with that. So please don't do it to me. An uncommitted polyadventurous couple. End quote. That that was like something Ainsley said to her to Riz. But on another note, I did not appreciate Ainsley being too harsh on Silva. Come on now. I thought the girls were closer than that because none knew that Silva was in a thing with Tate. Can we talk about that? Like I said, I would have hoped that we got more development in their friendship and hopefully they get closer to one another on an emotional level. At the same time, if it were me going to a nudist resort, I would only let certain people or friends come with, but much less my coworkers, much less. But anyways, yes, I did not appreciate Ainsley and Elshana's lack of regard towards Silva because what did she do? Elshana, I understand because that very hot scene with her and Silva in that threesome scene. Yes. But Ainsley, you're semi already dating her friend who is also an elf. So why the prejudice? Also, don't get me started on that party scene with Silva because come on, we all know that Tate will bend over for Silva, but at least let her have more of a say. She literally works in event plannings and things, for Tate's birthday. Now on to my second favorite couple, Silva and Tate. Quote, It was early days, and they'd not discussed the future of the relationship or their differing expectation. But it seemed to her that he wasted no time in making space for her and catering to her unspoken needs. Little insignificant things that were never mentioned that she noticed all the same. Tiny adjustments to his life to make her more comfortable in it. Signs that he listened when she talked and paid attention to her comfort despite the fact that she still wasn't sure where she fit. End quote. I will admit that Silva and Tate definitely had their fair share of hot scenes in this book. They were also the most angsty. I'm not gonna lie, they both have their moments. I know for a fact they both have their stubborn streak. I just wanted them to have a good old fashioned conversation. For those who have been in situationship, sometimes the what are we conversation. Every action, though, it just marked off just how much Tea and Silva mattered to each other than they both let on. For example, Silva lost count of the tears she shed when she was on her way back to Cambric Creek and how much she always spent her weekends with him. And Tate, well, he never said much, but the fact that he would show it in his actions to let Silva know that he had space for her in his life, i.e., one of their first examples is what that Tate had giant cups. And the next weekend, he had cups that Silva could drink out of, and he made space for her clothes in her closet. These kind of things that really stand out to me because typically, if someone is only there for fun, then why take the time to get cups? Why take the time to make space in a closet? Because I don't share closet space. Ask my boyfriend. He'll tell you. He knows I want a walk in closet and I would not share. And my personal favorite is when he made her an at home office to work from in his apartment. Quote, it didn't matter if she was bratty or overprivileged or too naive and trusting and foolish. Didn't matter if she felt invisible in her life 90% of the time. Positive that she could be replaced with the automaton and no one would notice because she was seen when she was with him. End quote. The fact that they both have mood swings and kind of need to be flexible with each other is definitely development I didn't see coming, but it was also not unwelcome. As physically beautiful as they both are, they are also imperfect. I know that Tate is not only just an orc, it explains his smaller and more slender size, think short orc king, because he is also part elf and part fae. I thought him finally opening up to Silva on an emotional level was really nice to see because, like Silva, readers are kept in the dark about his own past, but his grandfather, an elf, accepted him and taught him different ways to do his talents, leading up to the pole game. The one with the sticks and the 8 ball. Yes, I'm blanking. It's pole, right? Pole? Pole. Okay, clearly because the orc community or elf community would not accept him. For me, this explained his gruffiness and toughness because it would make sense that neither community accepted him. He would need to know how to make do with his other talents. I can understand why he didn't think he was going to see Silva again with the harshly implicated standards on elvish women with marriage and childbirth. I can't really hate on Silva because breaking those kind of boundaries is beyond difficult sometimes. Readers still experience that on L'Oreal's side, but when Silva didn't give Tate his spot and publicly accepted him, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to slap her. I would have reacted the same way as Tate. You're telling me you're ashamed of me as your partner? Oh no, ma'am. There would have been a telenovela scene that night. It's something that I wish women did not have to go through, such as the people pleasing phase, and see how much standards and expectations dictate happiness when that shouldn't. Silva did own up to her mistake though, and she is talking him up to her own family, even though they think it is a phase. I know in the end they finally came to a conclusion of sorts. Now I'm just ready for them to take it a bit further on the emotional relationship scale. Quote, she loved him. She reminded herself as he jerked beneath her again. She loved him and she wasn't going to let anyone stop her from getting what she wanted. Not her mother, not her grandmother, and certainly not him. She was his heartbeat and he'd said his home. That felt far more serious than a simple I love you as she'd not allowed him to micromanage himself into a tiny spot on the shelf of her life. She was gonna take control, just as she did then. End quote. Yes, I know what you're all thinking. This is a book on smart. It's meant to be lighthearted and it's a monster bait. Well, guess what? No, it could be more than that. And in fact, it is more than that. So bear with me. This is a work of fiction, and we all know that. And we all live in a world where we are very grateful to have story mothers like Anna Wong, Sarah J. Maas, Erica L. Sanchez, and even a bit of Elena Armaz. No shade, but IDK, what went wrong with Spanish Love Deception? But I loved the American Roommates experiment. But I need more stories like this that aren't afraid to let women know that they are not alone. Because oldest daughters and women with harsher mothers know that the weight of the world is sometimes on those shoulders. And I need more women to know that they are not alone. This world will throw a lot of shit our way. And yes, you could argue that works or fiction are meant to take you away from reality. True. you guys, you have no idea how sour I'd be if Christian Harper or Zayd Meadows really existed, but books also have a powerful mean to let even the loneliest soul in the world not feel so alone, whether it be through joy, happiness, sadness, but especially relatability. It's why I don't always like works of Colleen Hoover because of the blandness of it, or like, it's just my thing. Yes, I give her a lot of hate, but it was just not my thing. And some people are going to criticize me for like always reading smut and taking it to another level. Let it be. It is what it is. Now, on to my favorite baddie in this series, L'Oreal. I will say this about L'Oreal right now. I will not hear about Miss L'Oreal or Cash up in this show because she is the one that I adore the most. Because let me tell you, she is a beautiful woman, and I'm sad I don't have couples. I'm not sad I don't have couples, but I'm sad I don't have covers with the couples. But at last, it's one thing to be an elvish woman who is tall and beautiful. See Reese and Silva, please. With standards, it's an additional weight when you're curvier and you have extra pressure on that. And Nascosta does an amazing job at showing this as readers with example of L'Oreal's mother. Well, she hadn't been plagued with insecurities, had carried the voice of her douchebag ex and harridan mother in her head for years, letting them chip away at her self esteem. But when it mattered, she reminded herself she had picked up and walked away. She ended her bad relationship and when no contact with her toxic mother. She may have struggled with the voices in her head and the body she saw staring back at her in the mirror, the protective lava bubbling in her chest, but after a lifetime of being told what to do and how to look and what to think, her field of fucks to give was barren. End quote. Period. Boo. Period. I feel like I could go on and on about L'Oreal and how much I enjoy her character, but because, like I said at the beginning of this review, representation matters. Seeing that action of breaking generational trauma matters. And I'm glad to see that her relationship with Cash is definitely not one of angst like Silva or Tate or the group spontaneity like Riss and Ainsley. But that doesn't mean Cash and L'Oreal are boring. On the contrary, L'Oreal's and Cash's sex life, I did not see L'Oreal pegging as something they would be into. I was like, okay, L'Oreal, I see you. And the fact that Cash loves her big girl panties is just awesome. That is awesome. It's awesome. The patience, the communications. I wanted more dirty scenes with them, but the emotional support and the way that he validates her feelings and that trip to his family's. Well, she would be his rock this weekend. Not a role she thought she'd be playing, but a partnership meant to give and take. End quote. If there is one thing I am certain of, is that anything with meeting the family or in laws takes a very different kind of patience. But L'Oreal took it in stride, and for that I commend her. The fact that Cash is ready to put a ring on it and commit themselves together, I love a man who knows what and who he wants. I will say this and say this again communicate. For example, quote, but right now, darling, you got me all hot and bothered, and you're making that face like you're fixing to start to crying again. So I'm going to ask you very respectfully to put your tears away for another few minutes and let me drain this dragon. You know I love all of your big feelings and how much hard work you've been doing on yourself, and I want to give any topic you want to talk about my utmost attention. But right now, all I can think about is filling you up. So why don't you slide off and get on your knees and let me remind you of why it doesn't make a deadly bit of difference what anyone else thinks of us. End quote. If we're up to me, I would have had some more titty action going on, but that's just me. I low key feel very Daenerys and called Drogo in season one vibes because he was beyond proud to be with L'Oreal. And at one point, he was like, I will make you the biggest bride fire ever. And then this quote about her feelings quote, I'm going to be the one to take you by the hand, and I'm going to build you a bright fire so big it'll burn for a year. Do not even think about taking that from me. End quote. He knows that she is an emotional person, and trust me, so am I. Sensitivity is a double edged sword in itself. But this is how you help with an anxious partner. You acknowledge their feelings, and if it's a bad moment to let such feelings out, gently let them know and use a mental illusion picture to help them encase the feelings just for a moment. I think one of my favorite ways to control the feelings, such as anxiety or depression, in like an inopportune moment is to think of it as a child interrupting and you're not shutting them out. You're just saying now is not the moment. That's for me though. If you guys have any tips for that, any additional tips for that, but like or techniques. Sorry. If you all are still around and listening, thank you so much for just for listening. Let me know what you thought of the Girls Weekend series down below. And are you looking forward to the third book? What's your favorite book set in Camber Creek or by CM Nacosta? Thank you so much. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week.